We begin this hour with President Trump's push to expand his presidential power and what, if anything, is being done to try to rein him in. Just this week, Trump called for more of his political rivals to be prosecuted, issued a controversial pardon, and said that the Department of Justice owes him money. But some Democrats refuse to stand idly by and are taking action. Senators Adam Schiff and Elizabeth Warren have introduced a resolution to officially condemn Trump's pardon of Changpeng Zhao, the founder of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance. Zhao served 4 months in prison after pleading guilty in 2023 to enabling money laundering at Binance. And to no one's surprise, Binance has financial ties to the Trump family's crypto business. Meanwhile, in the House, Democrats have launched a probe into Trump's demands for the Justice Department to pay him up to $230 million as a potential settlement for previous investigations into his conduct. The ranking members of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees sent a letter directly to Trump requesting that he hand over documents and information to their committees. One of those Democrats, Congressman Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, joins us now. Congressman Raskin, as always, thank you very much for coming to the weekend and being on set. Now, what makes you think you're going to get those documents and things from President Trump on this?
Well, he's asking for $230 million from the taxpayer, so we don't think that this can just be some kind of backroom sign-off operation.
At least want to see an invoice.
Well, yes, we'd like to see some documentation of some of it. I mean, parts of it are just patently ridiculous, like asking for $85 million in punitive damages against the federal government. You can't get punitive damages against the federal government. It's against the law. It's written into the Federal Tort Claims Act that you can't get it. But the whole thing is preposterous because he's asking for $230 million based on the execution of a judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago. Remember when he had been concealing all the classified documents, refusing to turn them over, turn some over, try to get them all back and so on. How is he injured? The Tort Claims Act is about people who are violently injured, physically injured, or killed by the government.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know he was not physically injured by virtue of what they're calling the raid, which is just the execution of a search warrant, which happens hundreds of thousands of times a year across the country. Imagine if everybody got $230 million because their home or their office was investigated. But in any event, in his case, it's totally ridiculous because the Constitution says that the president is limited to his official salary in office. That's in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. It says his salary cannot be increased, it cannot be decreased, and no other compensation can be received. And he just wants a cool $230 million because he thinks the government is his piggy bank.
And at the end of the day, it's really important for folks, and Sam Stein reminded us of this yesterday, is that most of his legal fees were paid, the $230 million or however much, were paid by the super PAC that was created and people donated into. So really, the money ain't his to begin with, but I will digress.
His donors have already paid for it, essentially.
Exactly.
Now he wants to go back to the taxpayers to put more money in his pocket.
And not to mention the fact that there was a lot of tension at the time between him and his personal lawyers about whether they were getting paid and how much they were getting paid.
Exactly. I want to play some sound from your House Speaker, Mike Johnson, before and after he claimed to have read the New York Times report about the $230 million, but he still didn't know either way.
Yeah.
The Times is reporting the president is asking DOJ to pay him $230 million for his past cases. Is that appropriate, considering it's a department under his control?
I'm not going to comment on something I haven't read, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
How comfortable are you with the president apparently seeking $230 million from the Department of Justice?
I don't know the details about that. I've just read it. I didn't talk with him about that.
I didn't talk to him about that.
Yeah.
That sentence to me is very telling and very important because what it says is I was not told what to say.
Yeah.
Right? Like if someone asked me a question after I read an article, I'm probably going to have an opinion about it. You probably would have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk to the subject of that article to have formed an opinion in my adult brain.
Well, at least Trump's allowing him opinions sometimes because Trump the other day said, I am the president and the speaker. I mean, there has never been a more humiliating subjection of the Speaker of the House of Representatives in American history than what we're living through right now. We haven't even been in session for a month. You know, the Senate at least is in session, but they just closed down the House and they've closed down the government and they're trying to close down the health care of the people. And Mike Johnson says, I basically can't say anything until the White House tells me what to say.
And there's another $130 million that I feel like I've identified actually almost $1 billion that maybe could go towards the SNAP assistance
literally anything.
Over the course of this week,
exactly.
Between the East Wing and this DOJ payment, and now Timothy Mellon, who's donated $130 million to pay troops. Timothy Mellon is, as the New York Times reported, a reclusive billionaire, a major financial backer of Trump, and is the anonymous donor who gave this money to the U.S. government to help pay the troops during the shutdown. What are House oversight Democrats doing about this roundabout, unprecedented way of...
And possibly illegal.
Right. And politically, and I mean, if we're being very clear, very politically expedient donation for
Well, the first thing is that the only appropriations of money from the federal government that are allowable come from Congress. Only Congress can appropriate money. So if somebody gave us $500 billion or gave Trump $500 billion, he'd have to turn it over to the U.S. Treasury, and the appropriation is only lawful if it comes from Congress. But look, the bottom line is what we're saying to the billionaires of America is pay your taxes like everybody else pays their taxes, pay your fair share, and no, you can't buy off little pieces of the government. We'll take care of paying for the White House. And Congress should be deciding, not the president, what federal buildings are going to be, because we are the lawmaking branch of government in Article 1.
But that's the way things work on Earth 1,
yes,
Congressman. But it seems like we are all living. The president lives on Earth 2,
Earth 42,
and we're just going along for the ride. What, if anything, can you do to stop this?
Yeah.
Is it that we have to wait until the elections of 2026, assuming they happen and assuming Democrats take the majority, in order for Congress to reassert itself? Well, at least I should say the House at least reassert itself as a co-equal branch of government?
Fundamentally, yes, because Mike Johnson won't do it and Thune won't do it. They're not interested in standing up for Congress as a branch, which is what the framers of the Constitution predicted would happen. They weren't predicting political parties carving up the government. They thought that people in Congress would stand up for the legislative voice of the people against the president, but that is not happening. So we've got to take Congress back. Meantime, we're involved in a whole lot of litigation to stop this reign of lawlessness and torture of our basic institutions and constitutional values.
But what is the plan for House Democrats if you guys take back the majority next year? I mean, we know when Republicans took the majority a few years ago, James Comer, Jim Jordan, they came in, they had the Committee on the Weaponization of Government. They staffed up. They hired tons of investigators. They brought in as many lawyers as possible. What are the committee's plans exactly next year when you do have the power of the subpoena?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in terms of specifying, like,
he said he wasn't going to tell us to the spring.
Our top 5 items are...
But no, still going to ask you every time you come on.
No, it is very much within our agenda to restore the rule of law and to try to fight for a justice.
What does that look like?
Well, it means that the Justice Department will not be weaponized the way it's being weaponized. It will not be monetized in the way it's being monetized for the president, and it will not be used to prosecute the political foes of the president, in his view. The Department of Justice will be held to account for following the law and following the Constitution.
Why didn't Democrats codify those things when you had the majority?
Specifically,
anything after 2016,
yeah,
and after the first Trump presidency,
yes,
right? Like there is a world in which when you guys got the gavel, right?
Yes,
there was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, President Biden, Chuck Schumer as the majority leader.
Yeah,
that you guys did the same thing they did after Reagan or after Nixon, excuse me, and codified some actual law about what a president can and can't do.
Yes. Well,
I knew it.
I mean, you'll recall when we won the presidency back and we had a Democratic administration, we were fighting for actual progress for our people. So the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, you know, I sat there for 4 years under Donald Trump. We had Infrastructure Week, Infrastructure Month, Infrastructure Barbecue. We just never had a bill, and we did it, and we were We fought for a greater than $1 trillion investment in the roads, the highways, the ports, the airports, rail, trail, cybersecurity, all of that stuff. At the same time, we were fighting to vindicate, for example, the Foreign Emoluments Clause, right? Not something that is of as immediate importance as healthcare to the people or infrastructure, but very important. And that's precisely the kind of thing that the Republicans are able to use their power in the Senate to block. They didn't want to see that. So we were able to make progress on a whole bunch of things, including prescription drug reform. But it's very clear when we get back in, we're going to have to deal with these constitutional infrastructure issues because they've turned the presidency into an instrument for money making for the president and his family. So we got to deal with the Foreign Government Emoluments Clause, the Domestic Emoluments Clause, which says the president can't get extra money from the federal government. We're going to have to put in actual precautions to make sure this never happens to us again.
The revenge president. Donald Trump's second run in the White House isn't about policy anymore. It's about payback. Every decision feels personal. The tariffs on India aren't really about oil. They're about dominance. The insults towards Colombia's president aren't about drugs. They're about humiliation. The threat to send troops into U.S. cities isn't a show of control. It's the performance of a man trying to prove he still owns fear. Trump has turned the presidency into a revenge tour, settling old scores with the world and using government like a weapon of emotion. When Trump feels cornered, he doesn't negotiate, he strikes. His politics have always run on the fuel of resentment towards critics, toward institutions, toward anyone who ever made him look weak. That's why this phase of his rule feels darker. It's powered not by ambition, but by grievance. He sees betrayal everywhere, from allies who didn't clap loud enough to judges who ruled against him. Each new target gives him a headline, and each act of retribution gives his followers the satisfaction of seeing someone punished. For them, it's justice. For him, it's survival. This week's moves fit that pattern perfectly. India gets slammed with tariffs because it didn't obey. Colombia gets insulted because it dared to answer back. The U.S. cities are threatened because some governors refused to bow. What ties them all together is not ideology, but impulse. The reflex of a man who believes politics is just another season of revenge TV. The danger is that revenge always demands escalation. Once you start punishing enemies, you have to keep finding new ones. Trump's circle grows smaller, his tone harsher, his vision narrower. Even allies begin to hesitate, unsure when the loyalty test will come for them. That's how isolation begins, not with diplomacy failing, but with trust evaporating. Trump once promised to drain the swamp. Instead, he drowned the country in his grudges. Every tweet, every threat, every tariff is just another echo of the same message. You hurt me, now I'll hurt you. That's not policy, that's pathology. And the longer it continues, the more America looks like a man chasing ghosts of the past instead of building a future.